Hello and well met. This is Laren with Fantasy Grounds Academy. Today I'm going to be building a horror themed character, the Afflicted. This is going to be a ranger character that's 3rd or 4th level that had wandered too far out of his territory, and he had gained an affliction of lycanthropy. So this will feature a ranger build, and then on top of that, I'm going to add some third-party content which will allow for some of the lycanthrope traits. I'm using a lot of third-party content, and I will go over some of that as we go along in the video. This video would be more suited for people that are more familiar with Fantasy Grounds, maybe more of an intermediate use. This is the DnD5e rule set. I'm going to be going through some character creation, customization, and a little bit of lore. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and follow along. If not, you can always go back and watch the video archives. So we're going to start off with loading Fantasy Grounds. Normally I have it up and running, but I wanted to show you some of the content that I have loaded before I load into the game or into the session. So I have the Wizard's Death theme loaded, which is a paid art subscription. So it does not come with the base Fantasy Grounds. You have to pay for the art subscription, or you can buy it separately on the Fantasy Grounds store. I have a Moon Tracker loaded, which is a free extension that you can find in the official Fantasy Grounds forums. I also have Mad Nomad's automatic actions. This is or was available on the DM's Guild. It is now moved to the Forge. If you already own this, you can still download it from the Forge. It's just not available. If you're new to Fantasy Grounds and you want to buy this, you have to buy it from the Fantasy Grounds Forge. I also use Matacure's extension, the link fill. What this does is it pulls over the links from the actual books onto the Actions tab with the effects. So when you are using Mad Nomad's automatic actions, it will pull upon Rob 2E's coding effects package automatically and make character creation a lot quicker and less work. So I have those loaded for that reason, so that the video doesn't drag on and on with all the customization. And then I also have a font loaded, which again is a Matacure thing. It's free or very cheap. I think it's free on the Fantasy Grounds forums and on the Forge. It's very easy to subscribe to it, but once you do, there are 2 sets, one for Classic and one for Unity. Make sure you do the FGU ones. So I'm using the Roboto font for FGU, and that helps the size of the font a little bit grow a little bit bigger and a little bit easier to read. So I just wanted you to know what I was doing, and also I'm on a private LAN connection, so nobody can connect to me. So I'm going to go ahead and hit start. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to plug a few things. So coming up on the 30th on Saturday, I have a one-shot that I'm going to run on behalf of the Academy. I have 3-4 spots left, so if you guys want to join that one-shot, it's going to be on Saturday the 30th, the day before Halloween. It's going to be in the early evening, so it shouldn't be too late or way too early. It would really be good for people mostly in the North America and such. If you're in Europe, it might be a little bit late. If you are in Oceania, it might be a little bit early. But we're going to broadcast that live on Twitch, on Facebook, and on YouTube. So we'll have that streaming live. If you can't actually join the game, you can watch a little bit here and there. The other thing we got going on is there's some classes for Call of Cthulhu that are happening, and we also have some other D&D type classes. So if you're interested in any of those, go to our website, sign up, use your Discord name, and if you don't have Discord, go ahead and get that client downloaded and get that all set up first. And then join our website, and you can book an event there if you want. And that will be all this month. We'll try to have a little bit of horror themed stuff. Traditionally, we had a Spooktober. This year, we decided not to do that. Plus, the people that are involved with organizing it aren't really working with the college directly anymore. So that's part of the reason why we're not doing it. And the other thing is not everyone celebrates Halloween, so we kind of had to tone that down a little bit. But we'll get into character creation here shortly as soon as this loads up. You notice my load time is a little bit long because I have a lot of content. So if you want to reduce that, you can go in and organize your modules folder, and also don't have too many things loaded. Right now I've got about 50 different things loaded, so that's why the load time is so great. So my advice is don't have too much stuff loaded. that's kind of a, do as I say, not as I do thing. Definitely I need to go through and go through all my modules and organize them and take some out that need to be worked on, or you can still leave them in the directory, but you want to hide them from Fantasy Grounds in a subdirectory in your modules folder. That way they stay in the right place, but they're not going to get scanned and loaded up. All right, so here we are at the launch screen. I'm just going to open up my library and show you the content I have loaded. So I have pretty much all of Rob 2E's coding effects loaded. I have most, if not all, the core rules loaded. I even have some of the side stuff. I even have Tasha's and the Wild Beyond Witchlight Players section. I have Monstrous Races loaded because those are where I'm going to pull the Lycanthrope or the Werewolf out of there. Matt Akira converted this with on Rob 2E's team. And then I also have some other content that's loaded as extensions that I had showed you earlier. And what those do is they make this process of character building much simpler. The other thing I would do is over here on the right-hand side, I have a customized list of tabs and banners that I need. So if you go to Options, and then you open up your sidebar, you will get the options of what you want. So I basically have Create PC marked here, but I also grab parcels because I'm going to use that for my equipment. That'll make that a lot quicker and easier instead of dragging things over one at a time. The other thing, I have the custom decal of the Fantasy Grounds Academy loaded, and that's about it. So just a bunch of character creation content. I do have the monster manual loaded in case I want to test something out. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up characters, which is one of the banners on the right. And you can see I got a ton of characters. This particular session is what I use when I'm teaching character creation, so I have a ton of them. I'm not going to use the character wizard yet until that gets straightened out and gets a little bit more further along and being fixed. It still works for the most part. There's just a couple things newer that is kind of broken, and I know that John and Smiteworks are working on that. So they're just actually incorporating some of the new rules change. So it's not really broken. It's just another feature that needs to be added to Fantasy Grounds. So there's some things that they have to do to the rule set. Nonetheless, I'm going to go ahead and build a character the old traditional way, which is to click the green Add Item button on the bottom right. I'm going to do some stat rolling here. There's a dice command that you can do. It's right/die. And then I'm going to go with a 4d6, so it's lowercase d. And then K3, which means keep the highest 3. That's a dice rolling formula, and if you drag and drop that into your hotkeys, you're not going to have to keep typing that over and over. So I'm going to right-click in the chat window, clear everything so you can see what's going on, and I'm just going to click this 6 times in rapid succession. Okay, so there's 6 sets of numbers. I like what I rolled. I've got some average numbers and some above average numbers. So this guy's a ranger. So I'm not necessarily going to give him a 17 wisdom, but I will give him a 17 on his dex, because he's going to be more of a dexterous fighter. For his strength, I don't think he needs to be super strong, so I'll give him a 13, which is probably pretty good for his particular build that I'm going to make. Basically going to be like an archer. The 9, I'm going to put in intelligence because he's just kind of average intelligence. For his constitution score, I'll put 12, and his charisma, I'll put 12. Yeah, I'll put 12 there. And then I will use the 15 on his wisdom. So that's basically how his scores are going to stack up. And that's the first thing you want to do is add the scores to the ability section first. This is the older traditional way of building. If you use the character builder, you won't necessarily have to do it in this particular order. So the next thing I'm going to do is background. So I'm going to pull up a background that is suitable for this particular build. So I have a ton of content, so I have a lot of different things here to work with. So we can make him a folk hero. Maybe he is a haunted one, a hermit, inheritor, investigator. Let's go with mercenary veteran. No, It's too militant. I want something that's more natural. So maybe he's an Emerald Enclave agent. So he works for the Emerald Enclave, which is an enclave active in the north across Faerun. They have kind of a group, like a faction, and it looks like they have a safe haven feature and some ideals, bonds, and flaws. And they're typically mostly elvish. I mean, at least traditionally they were. I don't know if they still have those stereotypes, but they were like that. So maybe not. I don't know if I want to be part of something like that. Let's see. Born of Magic, archaeologist, anthropologist. Let's go with. I'm going to make him an emissary, somebody that represents, I think, or an exile. Maybe he was kicked out of somewhere. Faceless faction agent, just a regular agent, folk hero. You know what? I'm going to make him a far traveler. That's kind of a no-brainer. So just click on that and left-click and drag. Hold down your mouse button, drop it in the background area. It will add anything that needs to be added. And as you build your character, since I have those extensions and the content already loaded in the background, behind the scenes, Fantasy Grounds is automatically adding anything that pertains to this. So there's some tools in here. There's features that go with the actual background, and then I get a bonus language. So these things are being added as I build the character. So insight and perception are what I get from that particular background. So that's pretty cool. Now for race. So if I choose a race, I think I'm going to be a half-elf, something like that, or a human variant. I haven't decided. Yeah, just human variant. So I'm going to pull up the races, which is another banner. And I'm going to go down to human or human variant. So that would be H. So it's alphabetical in this list. And if you have a lot of content, you're going to have several pages. So you got to consider that when you're building. So human variant right here. So I'm going to drag and drop that into the race area. And since I'm a variant, I get to choose 2 abilities to increase by 1. So maybe I will grab strength and make that one of my increases. And then perhaps charisma. So you want to be a little bit more persuasive or not? Yeah, I think strength for sure and con. Those you can't go wrong with. So strength and constitution. So those help with certain types of things. So you get a +2 for strength. It didn't really help too much on giving me any bonuses for con, but what it does, it gives me better constitution saves. So that's why I picked that. And then I get to pick 1 background skill that comes from my race of whatever human variant I am. So I want to say athletics probably is what I would do, or nature. So you get nature from being a ranger, so I think stealth actually would be pretty cool. Since he's not really a big toe-to-toe fighter, he's more or less a ranged fighter. Or you can get athletics or maybe acrobatics, but I kind of like the stealth thing because that'll help a lot in a lot of different situations. And then there's always survival too, but I think that comes with ranger, so I'm not going to pick that. So there we go, and I want to check to see. So I have stealth, perception, and insight. So I don't want to choose those when I have my class. So I got 1 from my background, 2 from my race, and then I'm going to get some from my class. So I'm going to open up the class and level window with this little bracket up here. And then I'm going to go over to the classes section, and I'm going to pick a class, which is going to be Ranger in this case. So I'm going to grab the Ranger and drag and drop it into this little box here. You can drag it to the line here on the front sheet, but I like to see what's going on, and this is a better way to do it, I think, anyway. So you take this Ranger and you drag and drop it on top of this window. You'll get a pop-up. It'll ask you what skills you want to take. And this is what I was talking about before. So I already have insight, perception, stealth. So I'm going to take animal handling, nature, and 1 other survival. I think that's a pretty solid group of skills to have for this ranger. So that takes care of a lot of his outdoors / ranger type things. Wouldn't mind having medicine or athletics or something like that, but I think I'm good. So that is basically all the skills he gets, other than some tools that I'll add later. But as I'm doing this, what's happening is Fantasy Grounds is pulling over anything that I am grabbing from my inventory. So it's already pulled over a lot of the generic packs and some of the ranger abilities that I'm supposed to get. So that's a handy thing. So you don't have to drag and drop these by hand, or you don't have to create them. You can just drag and drop them straight on over to your sheet, and then they add to the Actions tab automatically, provided you have the extensions and the modules loaded. So you have to have all that stuff, and I've listed that in the details of the video. So this is just some of the ranger abilities he's getting, and some of the items that have functionality, like the torch, a crowbar. Crowbar gives you advantage on strength checks when you're trying to pry something open. And a torch, you can attack with it, but you also have the lighting effect too. So those are things that when you add to your sheet, if you have the right stuff, it'll do it automatically. Normally, when you have a longbow, you're going to have arrows, so I'm just going to fill that in while I'm here. So I just wanted to show you that it's adding all this stuff. Normally, it doesn't add all these actions and such unless you have the content that I listed earlier, which is the auto link fill, the automatic actions, and then also the Rob 2E coding effects. And then I'm also going to use Matakire's module shortly here once I get a little bit higher level. So I'm on the main tab. It's a Ranger level 1, Far Traveler, Human Variant. Now I want to actually level up before I do anything else. So I'm going to go to level 2. And all I have to do, honestly, is take this little link here, which is the class description link. I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop that down to the hotkeys. It's important to do that so when you're looking up things, you don't have to dig all the way back through here. You can actually just go to your hotkey, load that up, and read about what you need to see. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that out for a bit. To level up, I'm just going to drag and drop this back into the same area. And as I do so, it adds hit points automatically, the average of the hit points that you would normally get when you roll. It's going to add any new abilities here. And because I have the extensions and the modules, anything else that's added to the Ranger, such as the fighting style, is also added. And it happens to be archery, which is what I would have chose anyways. There are others, but that's the one I normally choose. It's also setting up for the Ranger spells, so you do get a few spells being a Ranger, so those have to be chosen manually. But still, it's doing a lot of the work for me. It's really nice. All right, so I'm going to go up another level. So again, I'm going to repeat the process, just drag and drop this up. And now I need to pick my specialization. So I haven't quite decided how or what this druid is going to be, but Beastmaster might be something, or a hunter. So what I was thinking about is using the Beastmaster as a way to bridge the gap between him, the lore, and how he got his affliction and all that stuff. So say he rescues a wolf, or a female wolf, out of a wolf trap in the forest, and he helps her, and she kind of limps around, follows him for a couple days, and then he wakes up one morning, and it's a beautiful woman that's laying by his side, or maybe off to the side in a camp. And he's like, "What's going on here?" And he helps her. He gives her a change of clothing, and they end up kind of talking and becoming friends. And a month later, though, when the full moon comes, she turns into a lycanthrope. They get into a little scuffle. She bites him, and then he becomes a werewolf, something like that. Some kind of cliche story that basically how he got the lycanthropy. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Beastmaster, and with that, you get a companion. You get some exceptional training. Maybe not, because his Beastmaster creature might not like that. So maybe I'll just make him a hunter. Or a Fey Wanderer, Swarm Keeper, Gloomstalker, Horizon Walker, Monster Slayer. Yeah, I'm going to go with hunter. I think that's pretty standard. Beastmaster might conflict, because his animal of choice might be an animal that doesn't get along with the lycanthropy part. So we'll see. So I'm going to go ahead and just make him a hunter. So I'm going to hit OK. And once that happens, anything that needs to be added will be done. And you already have your average of your hit points. At first level, we got max hit points. Second, third, fourth, all the other successive levels, you'll get an average. If you don't like that, you can always talk to your GM and roll instead of taking the average. You can just change it manually. There's nothing restricting you from making changes if you have to. And as of now, his AC is 13 because he has a 3 bonus on his dex, and he gets to take advantage of the full dexterity bonus. So you might get leather or maybe something lighter that won't bog him down too much. Maybe some studded leather, that would be cool. But we'll see. So on his actions tab, anything that was needed or added is here, been added to the sheet automatically. So I didn't have to do anything really with this. This is all added because I have those extensions and the modules. Just kind of makes this process a little faster. So there is the notes page. I think I'm going to make him neutral good when he's in his natural form. Normally, this doesn't matter in D&D so much, the alignment, and they're going to change the stat blocks with that D&D 5.5. They're going to say usually good or something like that. But as long as you have that typed out correctly, protection from good, protection from evil spell will work. If you just put an acronym there, you don't put it there at all, it's not going to parse, so it won't work well. If someone casts protection from good on you, that spell will be useless because you didn't fill that out. And then I'm going to put male, of course. He looks like he's probably about 25. Probably a whole 5'10" at the most, being a ranger. Maybe 5'11". He's kind of tall, but not over 6 foot. And I'm going to make him 185 pounds. He's kind of muscular. He's got a little bit of a build to him, but he's pretty wiry. So these are just little side things that you would add as you go. And then all these features are added when you build your character automatically from the Fantasy Grounds automation. So that stuff is automatic, but the stuff on the Actions tab are things you either have to create manually or you have to drag them from another source. Or in this case, I have extensions and modules that they're just dropping them on here automatically because of the way they're designed. So they were designed to work with Rob 2E's coding effects and with each other. So it's kind of like a three-way puzzle. Basically, it adds all the stuff on here. I recommend you get to know Fantasy Grounds a little bit better before you start doing that. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just if something goes wrong or it's not quite right, you're not going to know any better. So get used to Fantasy Grounds and then start adding all that fancy stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and add one more level to 4th. And generally, you get a ASI or ability score increase. And then you're also given some other options. So it depends on what you want to do. But I think I'm going to take you could take a feat at this point. So I might grab a feat just to see what we have. And I might grab a spell sniper or something like that. Or maybe a healer. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, no, I don't see that being a thing. Maybe lucky, inspiring leader. Yeah, I don't think so. Mage Slayer. Meta Magic Adept. I like mobility. I think that's a really cool. Oh yeah, you get to run or move 10 feet further. When you use the dash action, difficult terrain doesn't count against you. And when you make a melee attack against a creature, you don't provoke opportunity attacks for the rest of your turn, whether you hit or not. So that's awesome. So I'm going to grab the mobility feat, drag and drop that in the feats area. And if you have the Rob 2E's coding effects, it adds it automatically. You don't have to drag and drop. You don't have to make it. So you have all three of those extensions and modules and such. You can have that populate on your sheet automatically. So that's pretty handy. So that's the feat that I'm going to choose. So I did that instead of the ability score increase because my abilities aren't that bad. I mean, sure, I could have used more intelligence and some charisma maybe, but I think I'm good. So 4th level is where I'm going to stop building the character. That's basically the level that he was at before he became afflicted. So those are just things that the ranger had before he became a lycanthrope. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the spells while I'm here since I have everything up and going. So at this level, this is why I have this ranger thing open. So at 4th level, you get an ability score increase, and as far as spells go, you get a total of 3 spells known, and you can have 3 first level slots. So I'm going to go to the spells area. I'm going to go to the group up here on top, and I'm going to pick the 5e effects coding spells, and then I'm going to filter it at the bottom. I'm going to say level 1, and then the source, I'm just going to pick Ranger, because that'll narrow down the list. So let's do that. So I'm going to pick Ranger, just the generic one. And these are all the different spells, so I'm definitely going to get Hunter's Mark. That's always a good one. Cure Wounds. So let's do that. So all you have to do with these is they're already coded and ready to go. I usually drop them where on the character sheet where it says spell slots. That way it goes to the correct area. All the rest of these go where they're supposed to. But this one, if you drag it into the wrong area, it'll populate the wrong spot. So I drop it up here where it says spell slots, and it'll go where it needs to go. So here's Hunter's Mark. Here is Cure Wounds, and one other, maybe Zephyr Strike, or Alarm, or Ensnaring Strike, Fog Cloud. That's good. Fog Cloud is a very useful utility thing that kind of gets you out of a jam, like if you are getting pinned down by archers or if you need to escape. That's a pretty good, and it's a bit of quite a range on it, so you can obscure somebody's vision. So that's really utility. So I'll definitely use it. So Fog Cloud is, unless someone has a wind spell or something like that. So those have been added to the sheet. They're all coded and ready to go. Don't have to worry about that. Those are spells for the Ranger. And that's basically what I have here is just a really, I mean, it's pretty much done almost. I just got to add a few more things. So that is cool. So then if you go to the inventory tab, all the inventory that goes, the generic inventory that most people would choose, goes on the sheet. And then you can just rearrange this. So the quiver, I would put in the location for the arrows, because that's where he's going to store those. And then for his crowbar and that sort of thing, they'll go in his backpack. So anything that's loose that you're not actually fighting with or using as armor will go in his backpack. So here's some jewelry. So I'll probably put that in a pouch. The longbow, we'll leave that out. Maps, that'll go in the backpack. It's got some pitons or pythons or whatever you want to call it. Pitons or pythons. So that is going in the backpack. I'm going to put the pouch in the backpack just to have a place for it. The rations are going to go in the backpack. He's got some rope. That'll pretty much hang on the backpack. It's got scale mail armor. I might leave that. I don't know. I have to look at that. Got 2 short swords, which I'm going to get rid of those because I don't want the short blades. I'm going to give him a scimitar. Tinderbox is that. Backpack, torch, and water skin. So these are all things that basically he has in his inventory. I'm going to put the traveler's clothes in the backpack, even though he's probably wearing them, just to clean this up so it's not a big mess. So we have arrows in the quiver. We have a few items in the pouch, and most of the other stuff's in the backpack. And then on the actions tab, you can see where his sheet where it has the items. So I'm going to grab from the items area just a couple things. I'm swapping out the 2 short blades for a scimitar. So I'm going to do that, but I'm going to give him a magic scimitar just for the heck of it. So here's scimitar, and there's a magic +1 scimitar. So we're going to say it's some kind of elven blade or something really cool. So I'm going to drag and drop that onto the sheet. Now this scimitar, when you drag it over there, it's going to say refined because it's not identified. So until he's able to trigger or know what the magic of it is, it won't give him that bonus. But once you identify it as the GM, you can turn that on, and once it's identified, it will say +1 scimitar, and he will benefit from all these things. And if you go to his actions tab, it's already set up as a +1 scimitar. If you look at the properties, it's already got slashing and magic, and it already has the bonus added in. So you can make your own weapons, but this is a lot quicker just to drag and drop them. Ideally, if you're going to have a bunch of custom stuff, you want to build them in the spells or the inventory first, then drag them over so it's much easier to do. So the next thing is a healing potion. So I want to give him 1 healing potion. So I'm going to type heal or healing. And here's a potion of healing. So when I drag and drop this over to his inventory, it's going to automatically create that effect without having to go and do it. So I'm going to drag and drop this over onto a sheet. There's the potion. I want to open that up because it's not identified. So now it's potion of healing. And I'm going to put that in his pouch. So that is basically his inventory. He does have 5 gold, so I'll count that up here. He's got 5 gold. That was from a starting gold. And then let's take a look at his actions tab. So yeah, the potion is right here with the healing property on it. It's set to self, but you really don't need it on self. You just put it on target. So that's in case you want to heal somebody else. Then you'll be able to drag that button over to your allies or to yourself. Just gives you a little more flexibility. And then there's the spells. We got that. It's pretty much handled. So the last step here is I'm going to add some things for the Lycanthrope. So I'm going to add a Lycanthropy attribute to this character using the monstrous races content. So I'm going to go over to races and I'm going to filter. I'm going to go to the monstrous races 1 and I'm going to see if the werewolf is in here. So just kind of go through here. See vampire. There's the were-boar, were-rat, were-wolf, shape changer. So what you do with something like this is you already have a race, but you're going to drag this on top of what's already there. And there are different traits that you get. You get creature type changes. You have a trait called Cursed by the Moon. And then you have a shape change that you get. So there's some features here that will come over when you drag this over. So it's almost like bonus features, and here's all the traits. And if you are unsure how this works in Fantasy Grounds or you don't like what's happening, you can always customize it. But if you go to the story entry of any product, most products, there usually is some sort of instruction. So let's take a look at that before I start building. So if you go to the sidebar again, I'm going to pull up the story entry. So I'm going to click story. And then I'm going to go and read about this right before I add anything. So if I go to the story and then I go to the monstrous races, see if it's anything in here. There was a section, I believe, that actually tells you what you need to look for. Here it is. Monstrous races. Okay, so introduction, new rules, clarifications, Fantasy Grounds, monster races. Okay, so what it's saying here is if you want to go down this list and read the conversion notes and the things that you should probably look for, you want to take a look at the werewolf and see if there's any additional information before you build. So if you look for a lycanthrope or anything like that, so let's take a look at werewolf. That's a jackal-were. So let's see. Let's try a lycanthrope. Let's see if it just covers it like that. Yeah, lycanthropes. So this is a template. So what we have here is that the lycanthrope forms are here and the werebear, werewolf, those sort of things. So there is a template for these. So if you bring this up, it's going to bring up the shape changer thing. And then your class is that you're, linked to the cycles of the moon. And then you have this, you have these features that come with your hit die per level. So you're going to change almost like a multi-class is what's going to happen. So for Fantasy Grounds, it's implemented as both race and level templates with 2 levels. When a character first becomes a lycanthrope, apply the race entry to the character sheet field. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to drag the race over to the character sheet area, and that changes it to werewolf shape changer. And on the back sheet, on the actions tab, there might be a couple things. Nope, it's just mostly roleplay stuff. So your different things here will be added if there is anything to be added. So you have your traits. So creature type is changed, so you're no longer a humanoid. You're cursed by the moon. So those are racial traits. So that's what was added to your sheet. And then it says creatures not already cursed with lycanthropy may be cursed when attacked by a lycanthrope's attacks, usually a bite. A humanoid hit by an attack that carries the curse of lycanthropy has to make a save. Obviously, he failed. After being cursed, the effects take some time to be noticeable. The character's demeanor might become very subtly changed. Upon gaming with the template, the character immediately gains the traits listed for level 0 under the lycanthrope traits below. After gaining the level, you continue to affect the character. Every time you gain an experience level, you have to make a saving throw to resist becoming cursed. So that's kind of cool. So as you level up, you're going to use this race trait. So at level 0 for that, you got basically three levels, or 2. So at level 0, you're going to get certain things for your true forms. And then at level 1 for a lycanthrope, which is your racial thing, that's basically going to go up. So these are the traits that you're going to get for the racial traits, and they'll be added or in addition. If they conflict, you can work that out with your DM. So your creature type, cursed by the moon, shape change, controlled shape change comes later. And then you have controlled shape change, which changes your DC challenge rating. You get these other things that come with that, and you can adopt the alignment specified by your lycanthropy form. So, I mean, look at werewolves. Probably evil. Were-rats are lawful evil. Were-tigers are... Yeah, werewolves are chaotic evil. So, that means you're kind of a wild child at that point. So, I think his alignment fluctuates. Right now, he's neutral good. But for all practice and purposes, you are basically evil at this point, or considered evil, even though you may not have done anything yet. So that's just a perception thing. So at 7.5 BP, the werewolf falls slightly below our target range. It combines several other forms of lycanthropy, making a nice mix of abilities. So werewolves are pretty versatile. That's pretty cool. So that is something that changes. And then if you notice, the speed was already changed because of the trait that I got for feet. So it added the extra 10 feet already. So I have a 40-foot move, which is pretty sweet. And then you probably have a different movement once you turn into a werewolf. So those are things you'll have to keep track of. But for nonetheless, that's pretty cool. So I have now the werewolf shape changer race instead of just a human variant. And then as you level, you have to roll that saving throw. And if you fail, then you add another level to your race after you level up your class, that is. But that's pretty cool. I like the way that works. For werewolf, they grant +1 on strength and +2. So when you have your stat block, you can actually change that. So that's basically how you would set up your stat block. So if you don't use a extension or a module that allows you to shape change automatically, like the Diablo Bob's extension, then you would just use a stat block and it's giving you information on that. So that's really cool. So you get a werewolf, you use a 10 hit die. Yep. Well, for one of your proficiencies for BP. Let's see. Yep. So that's your, let's see. Pretty cool. So in this case, you would take a stat block and build what accordingly for your werewolf form. And then you can do all kinds of things. But you lose your dark vision and pounce, and without adding anything except for natural armor. So it's kind of sucks there because you don't really get those abilities anymore. But it's just kind of cool. But there you have your wolf gets pack tactics, and then let's see. Yep. So these are building points basically for the werewolf. All right, so that's not bad. So he's now a werewolf. So let me see if I can find a cool picture for him. So I'm just going to open up the data folder under the portraits. Double click there, and I'm going to look through here. And it has a Fantasy Grounds Animals, and then it has a Fantasy Grounds Fantasy. I'll take a look there first. So while I'm doing so, if you guys have any questions, it'd be the time to ask. There's really not much else to do to the character other than test it out. That would be the next step, is testing to see if it actually works, and going into putting them in the combat tracker and checking those things out. All right, so there's a bunch of different pictures here. I just want to get one that kind of has this kind of, maybe this, it's kind of a human look to him, but these are elven. Here's another elf. Let's see, where are the humans at? Here's the wild male with dreads. I might actually use that. Here's a guy with a beard. This guy with an eye patch. Here's a guy with a black goatee, slick back hair. That might actually work, but he's a ranger, so maybe that's not a good. I don't know. He looks more like a noble than anything else. Yeah, there we go. Human male magician, even though that's for a mage, I'm going to use that because it's kind of like a hooded cloak like a ranger. So that's kind of cool. So that's basically it. Then when you want to check it out, you just go to the combat tracker, put that up here, drag and drop it on here, and then you go to his actions tab. And anything that's automatic, like something that would be passive, that's on all the time, I'm going to go to preparation mode. I'm going to prepare all 3 spells. Your favorite enemy, favorite foe, what's that? So at first level, yep, you get to increase it at 6 levels. So that doesn't change. So I'm looking for things that I have to adjust, if any. Fighting style archery, that's going to be just a passive ability. All right, so there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to combat and actions. So I'm going to enable the note for my feat for the effect, just so I remember. Also going to see, favorite foe is situational, or favorite enemy. Fighting style archery, that's going to be on. Natural explorer is just basically a note. Primeval awareness, you have to burn a spell slot, I believe. Yep, so that's just something you use when you need to. And then you have your spells. So those are what would be on. And then I want to look at the lycanthrope thing, see if I need to code any of that. Probably not, but I'll take a look. So here's creature type. There's Cursed by the Moon. There is a feat, which we already know that was the mobile feat, so I'll just put a note there. Keen hearing and keen smell. So that's advantage on wisdom checks for hearing and smell. That's a kind of a wolf trait. The lycanthrope form is something that we'll have to look at, but we'll have to see what all we get. And that might have to be the stat block that we make. There's a shape change, so that is something will probably be tied into the stat block. And then the skill came from the versatile, or the human variant. So it says tool any musical instruments or gaming set of your choice, likely native to your homeland. You get any of your choice and another choice. So I'm definitely going to pick Elven and Sylvan, because this person is connected to the forest. So I think this would be helpful for this kind of build. So he knows those languages in addition to common. I'm going to go ahead and pick a musical instrument or a gaming set. I don't see him with a gaming set, so I'm going to pick a musical instrument. So I'm going to give him a pan flute or something simple like that. So in the items area, I'm going to type pan. See, there's the pan flute. I'm going to drag and drop that over to his inventory. I'm going to put the little pan flute in his pouch, so that'll be a capital P. There we go. And then I'm going to give him a dagger in case he has to defend himself at close range, just a regular old dagger. And make it 2 daggers. You can also throw those, so if he runs out of arrows or if he needs to do short range attack. Those are on his inventory for his sheet, and now they're on the actions tab. I added 2 for the ammo in case he throws them. got the pan flute, so I'm going to add that as a skill. So it's really not a skill, but you're proficient with it. It makes it more specific. So I'm going to put instrument and then pan flute for the description. I'm going to make sure that it's a star because you're proficient. And you can base it off of anything. I don't think you can be that charismatic with it, so I'm going to leave it as dex. But that can be charisma or dex, however you want to do it. I think he just plays it very dexterously and very cool. I don't think he really expresses himself with it like he would a more of a complicated instrument. So I think dex is a good choice. That's pretty much it. I just added the instrument. Is there anything else in his abilities? See, we took fighting style. I'm going to notate that. We took archery, which is a +2 all the time with his bow and his ranged weapons. Ability score improvement. I'm going to just put a note that we took the, instead of that ASI, we actually took a feat. So I'm just going to put feat there. And 4th level, so I remember what I did. So that's good to do that for your DM and for your own notes if you're a player. And there's the archery. Hunter is something that, yeah, so he gets hunter's prey, defensive tactics, primeval awareness, ranger archetype. We're gonna get that. Spellcasting's dealt with. Spellcasting focus. Kind of get like a druidic thing if you want. I think he's good. I don't think we have to do too much other than maybe work on a stat block. So that's it. That's basically it. So these are all the things that you get for being a lycanthrope. Most of these don't warrant anything but a stat block switch. Or if you're going to use Diablo Bob's thing, you can set up his one-click druid. You can set up this like polymorph or like shape change basically, and it will change your token and everything. I didn't get to that part, but it's definitely something that's cool. That's easier to deal with than making a stat block. So yeah, there we go. So that's pretty cool. So it adds a few things, mostly roleplay stuff. So when you're using this, I'm going to put a note here, even though I already know, lycanthrope or creature type. So when people attack you, they have the correct shape changer in here so that it parses correctly. Or if type attacks, like if someone uses a silver weapon, those sort of things. So I'm going to go ahead and clear the chat area here, and I'm going to remove these extra players on here. And there we go. So that is the 4th level ranger that was turned into a werewolf. The lore was basically he was out hunting. He found a wolf caught in a trap. He let the wolf go. The wolf followed him home, limping around. A couple days later, he found a woman in his home. He thought it was somebody different, and then he realized after a while that maybe it was the wolf, but he wasn't sure. They became friends for a few weeks, and then she turns into a werewolf one night, and they have a little scuffle. She bites him basically and takes off, and then he becomes afflicted. He starts getting sick and starts changing, and now he's a lycanthrope. So that's what you get. You don't bring strangers home. So there we go. That is the ranger build. I didn't give them a name, but that's something you want to do before you start. And you always want to give them a portrait. That way, when they're on the combat tracker in the battle map, they show up. So this is a custom build, kind of an intermediate way to build the characters. Not expecting you to remember all this stuff, but definitely helpful in regards to what type of content I'm using, what you need to build your character. So here's something I left out, these personality traits. So if you go to your background and you scroll to the bottom for the Far Traveler or whatever background, there's some things that you can choose back here. I think I'll do that right now. So I'm going to go to notes, open up the table. I'm going to roll on the table just to see what it comes up with. I honor my deities through practices that are foreign to this land. I'm fine with that, because he's a far traveler. And then the second one is honor. Yeah, it's the same thing. So he's just going to have that one. And then you go to far traveler ideals, roll there. Let's see. inquisitive. Everything is new, but I have a thirst to learn. So yeah, I think he's very curious about things. That makes sense. The bond. How is he bonded to the world that he lives in? So long as I have this token from my homeland, I can face any adversity in this strange land. So that's probably his little pan flute thing. Helps him get through rough times. And then his flaw that he has is what? I pretend not to understand a local language in order to avoid interactions I would not normally have. I like it. So there we go. Those are his background. And if you have any notes here, you could do that. Guy would probably look pretty strange in a lot of cultures. So if he goes to different areas and he's out in public or something like that, he's probably like not too well liked, or everyone kind of frowns upon him. There we go. So that's, I'm just going to put level 4 ranger. So if I look at this again, and I'm going to put werewolf, just so I know that this character is that. And if I ever want to play it again, it's easier for me. So that's his name. It's level 4 ranger werewolf. So that's a good practice if you don't have a name for it. All right, so that's it. And I think that'll call that a day. Hopefully that helps you a little bit. Again, I was using the monstrous races. There's actually 2 books out now, and you can kind of build your own sub race, sort of, depending on what you're doing, or you can build from like a null character. And then I was using Rob 2E's coding effects, which are all these things up here. And then extensions wise, I was using the automatic links, or the link fill that Matakiri built, and because it pulls over all the spell descriptions. So if you don't have that, what happens is when you open up one of the actions on the actions tab, let's say you wanted to read about this favored foe, it would it wouldn't have the link built into it necessarily for the spells and such. So if you go to a spell and you see this link here, that's what puts that link there to the book. They had to remove these, so without that extension, you have to manually link it yourself. But Matakiri figured it out, so that's pretty cool. So that adds the link to the effect if you haven't already figured that out. And then the other extension I have is the automatic effects extension from Mad Nomad. It's on the Fantasy Grounds Forge. It used to be on the DM's Guild, but if you've already purchased it, you can still get it there. It'll be updated, but you just can't. It'll be in your library. You just can't download it like from the purchase page. So that's it. Hopefully that helps you out. Have a good weekend. Hopefully you can join us at some time to learn more about Fantasy Grounds and also to participate in our events. Take care. This is Laren, and I will see you around. Bye-bye.